We'll call the meeting to order.
Commissioner Carey?
Here.
Commissioner Batterson?
Here.
Commissioner Molina?
Here.
And Commissioner Chair Lee?
Here.
And Commissioner Velasco is absent.
Thank you. We have approved minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's minutes. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Having public comments today? New business. Alex, do you want to review this for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners, afternoon, I think we're still afternoon, right? So I think everybody's heard that the County Board of Supervisors, in kind of an unrequested and unprecedented move, voted to commit $1.5 million to the sports complex project. This was something that Supervisor Lavanino brought forward at the Board of Supervisors. We provided him with some 11th hour information the Sunday before the meeting so that he could make that presentation to the board, and the board unanimously adopted it as a line item in their budget. So it's not like they've written us a check or anything, but it is a line item in their budget. And as the project continues to move forward, that will be an important component of it. The update on that project is that we have a visit scheduled with State Parks for our $8 million grant that we submitted. That's going to happen at the end of July. This particular action by the Board of Supervisors, we just got a copy of a letter from the board chair that we sent up to State Parks with a commitment for the funding. State Parks wanted to see something from the board, so we sent that up as a supplement to our application. So that's a good thing. I mean, I think it helps show the state that not only the community is behind the project, but the county is behind the project. And frankly, I can't tell you the last time I remember the county putting any money towards a project within an incorporated city. So that's a pretty big step for them. So I appreciate Supervisor Lavanino's efforts to get that funding. So it's a good catalyst to keep us moving forward.
I applaud their generosity. However, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't understand the total need and therefore had a more detailed discussion about what the whole total project will require. And I'm just curious, do they have more funds possibly that they could contribute?
It's my understanding, and I don't know for sure, the mayor actually went to the next Board of Supervisors meeting and requested additional funding, and I think the board said this is it. So,
Because just today, there was a posting by Jennifer Molina, and she brought it up. And one of the comments was, yay, we now have the softball fields. Now, I mean, we have the soccer fields. Now we can move on to softball and some other fields. And I think the public generally just has a very huge lack of understanding as to what are we trying to do and what does it require for us to accomplish it.
right. I think that the information that was asked for from the staff on the Sunday before the meeting was, how much money does it cost to build fields? So the actual field construction itself is about $3.5 million. There was no discussion about the acquisition costs, which we don't know what that's going to be. Our estimate is that it'll be $6 million or somewhere in that realm if we had to buy it on the market. So that brings the project up to that $8-9 million range. So that Supervisor Lavanino's comment to me was that he felt that he wanted to make a significant impact project, and based on the $3.5 million that for construction, that is a significant amount of money towards that kind of a project. Towards the project as a whole, that's a different number. So we did brief him on that and walked him through, his city manager and I walked him through the expenses and the budget. And so he understands the project better now, but I don't think you're going to see another allocation from the county. Like I said, I can't remember any time that they've ever allocated any money to a city. So, yeah, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So, which kind of leads me into letter 5B. So in the packet, as a follow-up to that, and what happened was Cindy Hoskins had a conversation with our state grant representative about the county fund. And when they asked for the letter of commitment, they said that letters of commitment like that help bring down the overall cost of the project are valuable in helping them make their decision. Not that it would sway it one way or the other, but they're valuable. So in your packet, we included a proposal and a resolution from the commission to the council to ask them to set aside their money. At this point in time, the city has not committed any funds to the sports complex. It has, the way that we typically would do this is that once we move through the grant process, if there's money that needed to be set aside, then we would come back and kind of fill the gap. So the approach we want to take this time is that we would actually advance a recommendation to the council for them to earmark in a future budget. In this case, it's $1 million is what we're asking to the project. And that would be, again, something we would communicate onto the state that, the city's committed that $1 million. I think right now in our budget, or in our application submittal, it was like $150,000 or something that was that was city money into the project, which is typically our cost like for
Labor,
yeah, so we've gotten into that part of it.
reconstruction.
Yeah, all the stuff you need to do before the project even gets off the ground. So the staff recommendation in the staff report is that the commission discuss and consider a resolution to the council asking them to earmark those funds. And I'll give it back to you, Commissioner Lee, and if we want to talk a little bit more about it amongst the commissioners, we can do that.
Any comments from the commissioners? I just feel like we need to do a public release clarifying the project. What is the project? The Board of Supervisors for the Santa Barbara County has committed a seed money of this amount, and what is the balance, and what are the possibilities for getting the balance, and where is it going to be, the site. I just really feel like the public is not knowledgeable of what the project is and where we're going. Those thermometers that they create when there's a fundraising project? Maybe we should create something like that and have the department do a public release and clarify. Right now, we're only at a drop of the bucket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would probably be, after it passes that we get the grant, maybe we could do something like that. But I think right now, we really need to focus on this and get it going. And if we can muster up some more positive energy, it would behoove us not to do it. So I think we need to do it. But I love that idea. It's just like we do for the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the effort to, so typically what we'll do, and you bring up the fireworks, it kind of reminded me, is we will do something like the thermometer or something like that. But usually there's like the seed money, and this $2.5 million, $500,000 from the county and the $1 million that we're requesting from the city would be that baseline on that thermometer. That gap, as you suggest, would be the additional, $5.5 million that we need, based on what we're asking the state for in the grant. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this, if the council moves forward on this and does the recommendation, then I think that's a good place to kick it off and say, okay, now we're really moving forward. Give you an example, when we opened the youth center, well, didn't even open the youth center. When we were in this position in the youth center, at that time, Assemblyman Maldonado, got $1 million for the city and said, here's $1 million, and I want you to use it to build a youth center. The $3.5 million that it cost to actually build the youth center never came into his mind because he didn't have any concept of what it would cost to actually build it. So we started there, though. We said, we have $1 million from the state. Where can we go from here? Later on in the process, after the city, I believe, approved the CDBG grant for the project, he was able to go back to the state, and I think he received another $500,000 from the state to put towards the project. So I think we're kind of like trying to build some momentum here. And from a marketing standpoint, I think that's a good place to start off for, hey, we're not at $1.5 million, we're at $2.5 million, and we're wanting to move forward. There's no guarantee we're going to get any money from the state, so I think that's when it's important, like you suggest, Commissioner Lee, that we tell the community, this is where we are, this is where we need to be, and we can kick that off. So certainly I agree that we need to do a better marketing program once we get going.
So to clarify, we have $1.5 million from the Santa Barbara County supervisors, and then you're requesting a resolution from the commissioners to ask for a minimum of $1 million from the city council of Santa Maria. And then we'll keep our fingers crossed for the state and
Right.
the public for donations, et cetera.
Right. And it'll get to that point where I'm not sure what the public ever would do, but when we did the Maldonado Center, we raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 strictly for equipment, because the building, you got the building as a shell, there was nothing in it. So sponsorships and things that were provided by service clubs and private donors funded all the amenities that were in there, the game room, the computer lab, all those items were provided by that. And I think at this facility, you're going to need goals and nets and, landscaping material. You're going to need other
Mowers.
things.
Yeah.
Sorry?
A mower.
Yeah, equipment to maintain it. Those things are not included in this proposal that we submit to the state. It's basically just your bricks and mortar component of a project.
So the first thing we need from the council right now is a suggestion to adopt a resolution requesting the city council to commit
To
minimum-
earmark $1 million.
earmark a minimum of $1 million.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Of
So-
future park development fees and Measure U quality of life funds. It's really all right here of what we, it's laid out for us.
I would like to
Do we
to
just
request.
approve this resolution?
If that's what the commission would like to move forward with and make the recommendation to the council, yes.
I'd
If
like
there is-
a recommendation for a motion.
I have a question.
Question?
If we say, if we ask for the $1 million, what do you think the city council's gonna say? I mean, we could ask.
Here, let me turn the mic off.
We can ask all day, but.
Right. I think that the way we tried to present it from staff's perspective was their park development fees. Those are fees that are going to come to the Parks Department via development. So when development happens in that area, those dollars will be coming to the department. The earmark would simply say, X amount of dollars of that is going to be spent on the sports complex. So part of the money is, I'll use the term our money anyway. I mean, we'll be seeing that money. The Measure U funds are different because those are an appropriation that the council would have to make from their Measure U budget. So that's the only money that is kind of out there, that we don't really know what they might do. They could decide, if they don't want to support this or if they want to do something different. Measure U can be used for other quality of life things, the library, art, they can do different things with it. So that's why we're kind of suggesting money that they use money that has a nexus with the kind of project we're trying to do. We're trying to do a youth project, so that's quality of life. We're trying to do a park project, which is park fund. So taking those two pots of revenue and melding them together to come up with a commitment to a project. That's really what we're trying to do.
Okay, so going back to,
Okay,
I'll go ahead. I propose that we approve resolution number 2021-02, which is a resolution of the Rec and Parks Commission of the City of Santa Maria recommending funding of the proposed city sports complex be sent to the City Council for approval.
do you have a second?
second.
Questions, discussion? No? All those in favor of approving this resolution?
We'll have to do a roll call on that one, because it's a resolution. Sheila, can you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Carey,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Patterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Molina,
Aye.
and Commissioner Velasco is absent.
Thank you.
So we all need to talk to our city council members.
So background, a little bit of background on this. So this information went to the finance director today so that she could consider it. One of the parts of the resolution at the end says that I believe it's the fifth whereas, recommended the council the total of $1 million of the project using a combination of city funding sources. So the funding sources get to be really figured out by the finance director. She's the one that gets to kind of see what's out there, what percentage of what comes from where. She may have other suggestions, but she'll make those suggestions directly to the council. Our suggestion are these two pots of funding, but she may have others or completely other funding ideas. Could be CDBG, could be some other component. Thank you very much.
While we're on this topic of funding, I had a very quick conversation with Commissioner Molina about our stipends, $75 a meeting stipends. And personally, I would like to stop receiving those and donate that back to the department in some way. It could be for this or some other project, lawnmower.
Lawnmower fuel.
But I'd like to ask the other commissioners, what are your thoughts about something like that?
Can I tell you how it works?
Sure, please.
The way that it typically would work? Because we've had other commissioners ask it in the past, and actually there's some council members that kind of, I don't know if there's any now, but there used to be council members. So what they would do is you get your stipend, and then you donate that back to the city through whatever method you have as a personal side of your life, so that you can donate it back to play and get the tax deduction on it. You can actually donate it to the city and get the tax deduction on it. It's a little, your tax person has to spend a little bit more time doing it. But either of those ways has been the way it's typically handled. It's left to each commissioner or council member to write that personal check and make the donation, you know, after they get their stipend. So it's up to you all.
And I know when I was at the university, in order for an endowment fund to be created, you need a minimum of $20,000 corpus. Is that, are you aware of?
So we have, so the department has an endowment fund through Play, and it's at the Santa Barbara Foundation. And I believe it did require us to begin with $25,000. That fund is at approximately $150,000 or $170,000 right now. Commissioner Velasco probably has the number off the top of her head, but I believe that's about where we are. So again, donations could be earmarked to go to that fund specifically, or it could be, you could write on your check that you wanted to go to the sports complex, and then it would go there, or whatever other program you wanted it to go to, youth program, you know, whatever, the pool. It's kind of up to you as a donor, because then you just become a donor, just like everyone else.
Does the city have a development officer that provides consultation? No.
No, the city does not fundraise. So, well, other than what we do in the department, so,
And that takes me to my question.
yes.
As a community, what can we do to raise funds for our sports companies? Like, say, for instance, pickleball community?
Yep.
They got together and they did that.
Yep,
The letter I wrote you earlier, we got from youth football, that was about they want to, you know, get their own, buy their own stuff and have their own football field, you know, and they want to raise money for that. How can we as a community get together and raise money for this?
so I think the best way, I'll mention to you my suggestion. I think those groups that are going to most benefit from those facilities are the ones that should be stepping up right now and saying, okay, we want to help raise money for these fields. You know, as well as I do, back 9 years ago, when the sports fields were the big to-do, that group, that soccer group, had in their mind specifically what they wanted. A 20-field complex, they wanted it out on the west end of town. They had in their mind, the city owned the property, we should build a complex. It never got off the ground because just the numbers, just 20 fields, that's, you know, well over 30 acres of land that you need, you know, and so it just didn't get off the ground. I think realistically, if the groups want to step up now and work on fundraising events, we can either run them through Play. I know some of them are already nonprofits, like a lot of the club teams already have their own small nonprofits. Just like the information you sent me on the youth vocational project, they created their own nonprofit. It's just a matter of those groups getting together and saying, okay, this looks like it's moving forward. I think this is where Commissioner Lee's comment is important. Okay, so there's now $2.5 million earmarked for this project. Now it's time for you as a community to step up, and what can you do? Maybe they can raise $1 million, or maybe a lot of these groups have field funds set aside that they've been building up for the very same reason that they want to purchase land, or they want to, you know, improve a field, or they, you know, want something, and they have pots of money that they can access to contribute towards the project. All those comes with strings attached, which is the other side of it. It's, okay, so what do I get for this donation? And those are the details that we would need to work out with each of them. What's the expectation? You know?
Well, I think lighted facilities
Yeah.
in this city, we need more, you know, we need the lights.
Yep.
That's why we're having the problem that we have now, because we don't have too many areas where we do have it. We practice when the time changes.
Yep.
So everything has to be lit up, and the community, there has to be a plan of what, like you said, we can't have just 20 soccer fields. There has to be allotments of time. But at the same time, it does, take away from the stress of other fields that you can have, and it open up Hagerman, it'll
Yeah.
open up Alps, it'll open up Con, it'll open up different fields that everybody else could use. It wouldn't be so packed. So we have to find out a plan
Yep.
and exactly what would go in that sports complex.
That's an important
And attack.
part that I don't think, again, that you bring up, and again, Commissioner Lee, we could market, we could use it through the marketing tool, is that right now, everybody shares. If we were able to provide field sports, a field sport area, then they're no longer playing in the outfields of our ball fields, of our baseball or softball fields. They don't have to be there. They can be in their own space, so to speak. So that's a benefit that, frankly, we really haven't pushed or marketed. And I think that's an important point that we need to make, is that it may not be that we're building a new softball or baseball field, but perhaps you're getting one back that we used to do. And we are still pushing for the field lighting program that we talked about through the PG&E program. We were hoping that the federal money that came through after COVID, the ARPA money, would allow us to access some of those dollars for lighting projects. Doesn't really look like that's going to be the way that it's going to go, but we do have our list of ball field lighting projects in there, so we'll kind of see how things pan out. The federal regulations are just convoluted, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. They're just so confusing that our finance people and the team have yet to figure that out. But I agree, Commissioner Molina, that if we need to market it better, we need to show people they're going to get something, they're going to get back ball fields, they're going to have more time on their ball fields because other field sports will be off of them.
And in the last couple of months, COVID had helped me here, and we've been using Roddenberger and Miramonte to the full extent. We're using it on the weekend, and not only are they just now practice fields, we're using them as game fields. And Con, we're trying to do the same thing with that field over there. So I think utilizing the space that we do have now and, make them into playable fields, protected, gated. We talked about fencing up Edwards because of the fact that you cannot spend money there, but the people will destroy it at night.
Yeah.
And Elks Field is deteriorating, and it was covered with grass, the tarps, for the last year and a half. So that field is deteriorating. So there's a lot of stuff in our community now that we just need to address also.
Yeah.
Well, we can certainly fundraise for field renovations and field improvements for facilities that we already have. I mean, I think that's great. We don't always need something new. We need to fix what we have.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was just approved. You see that where we're going to bring back the Santa Maria Indians here to Santa Maria under our group. So one of our first things that we want to do is renovate Alps and fix it back up because it's kind of, but that helps as a community. We wanted to get in that.
Well, let's talk about what needs to happen there and then what the fundraising effort would look like.
Yeah, and that's where the community.
Happy to entertain that.
And that's good. I mean, it's always been a community field. It should be a community field, and the community should be involved in getting it going. And, we've had the efforts in the past, but they haven't quite panned out to where we want them to be. But to provide a safe field to play on, that's not that hard to do. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of money. Whenever we do a project, it's typically you're going to build something, so you're talking $1 million. A field renovation, you can probably get by with several $1,000s, so.
Yeah, it just depends on what the needs are and.
What the needs are, and at Miramonte and Roddenberger, there's that excess area right there. You can make 3 ball fields there. You can actually cut another ball field, and that gives you 3 fields complex there. that opens it up
Just
for
keep in mind
soccer.
that then you're excluding other sports. so-
Yeah, and I mean, that's
Just need
if
to
you
be
open a
careful
sports
about that.
complex.
That's exactly,
You,
yeah.
you have a sports
Is it going to be a
complex that has more
multi-use, or
fun.
is it going to be an
Yeah.
exclusive? So there's that to consider, and like we had the fee discussion on that.
As long as the sports complex comes with a plan, I think people will say, oh, yeah, we'll help you build that, and then,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get more of that. And we can be, like Alex says, we can be here, say at Hagerman, Brandenburg, and we're fully happy.
Yeah, and that's, I think Brett was going there right now with his comment, is that, and then the commission maybe, we need to look at the policy of multi-use fields versus maybe designating some as specific use fields. You know, right now, it's multi-use fields, just because we don't have them. It's a good problem to have, I guess, you know.
That's true.
But thank you for that resolution, and we'll be advancing it on to the council as soon as we can. Try to get on an agenda. And thanks, Commissioner Malena, for your comments. We'll keep that in mind too as we move forward. And if you know groups that want to start talking, we should bring them forward and get with Brett and we start talking about field renovations and things. So,
Do I go directly to Brett?
Yep.
he's the guy. And then we'll give it to somebody else.
I got his style number down, so I got a style number now.
That's good.
Alex,
Yes, sir.
do you believe that now may be a good time for a public forum to, one of those halls, especially since COVID, we're kind of opened up again? Just
Yes.
invite them, give them an overview and solicit ideas.
Yes, we can do a dog and pony show and get that together and do more. I mean, we've done a little bit of marketing with the media, but, we can do more. Definitely, we can work with Dennis on that.
And then we get all the sports field users together and encourage them to come.
Yep.
Wonderful. Moving on, old business?
5C, sorry,
New.
we have
I'm
5C
sorry.
just real quickly to talk about restrooms. Sorry, it's a
So,
big subject for us.
thank you, yeah, park restrooms are an ongoing challenge for us, as you might imagine. It's nothing new to the city. It's, from my understanding, been a challenge throughout the years since we've decided to install restrooms in parks. Alex, do you know what year, about how long ago we installed restrooms? 20-plus years?
I would say 20 years ago, Councilmember Trujillo was one of the big advocates for restrooms in the park. Something we didn't have before, everywhere. So,
And so what we're faced with now is vandalism. We're faced with maintenance cost. We're faced with time spent by both our rangers and our maintenance staff managing those projects and managing the issues that go along with them. So I just wanted to make sure that we're still of the right mindset and making sure that bathrooms still make sense in all areas. I think that we're going to need to manage them differently than we have in the past because of the issues that we're seeing. It can't continue on the trajectory that we're on. So I wanted to bring up some of the issues, costs, and then some of the solutions that we think that are appropriate and are up for discussion here. So real quick, just some outline. So we have a tremendous amount of vandalism, and especially has ticked up in the last few months since the reopening, post-pandemic, if you will. During the pandemic, I would say that things were quieter, and then we got hit hard, really hard, and we've had to close a number of bathrooms. But so until the end of February of this year, we spent about $16,000 in just vandalism issues alone, replacing toilets, doors, graffiti issues. Frankly, I thought that number would be higher, but where the cost really comes in is the time spent, from my staff or our park staff managing the contractors and, getting everybody in just fixing that bathroom and then having to go back and replace, in one case, 5 toilets in 1 year. And I've got a little handout here so you can see how our toilets hold up. Just let you know. So these are just,
Oh, thank you.
this is a common issue.
Brett, can I just stop you for 1 second, ask a question?
Sure.
trying to understand the departments better, so my question is, do you have skilled trade mechanics that go around doing the repairs and replacing the restrooms?
No,
Or do you have
we-
to contract that?
We have to contract it.
And have the department ever evaluated what the difference might be? If
So we're beginning to evaluate that, and I would say that we're starting to track vandalism better. And so what we did is we went through our billing and looked at, okay, how much did we actually spend on these contractors in these different areas? And so it becomes part of the picture, you know, especially when considering a new staff person is, you know, what did we spend on this issue? And then before we say, let's add a staff person, it's how can we eliminate that issue in the first place? And so that's part of this discussion, is how can we eliminate that issue and possibly avoid that? And then we can take a look at, you know, yeah, skilled labor. So we are trying to get a better metric on that and, you know, to make better decisions. So just continuing along the line, we think we'll be about $25,000 in a year on vandalism alone in bathrooms. And that's pure pass-through cost. That doesn't include staff time. That's just contractor cost on materials and labor. To give you an example of why this number is important, we can paint a bathroom, we can epoxy the floors, we can make the bathroom look pretty for about $1,600 to $1,800. And so when you consider that we're spending that amount of money on just vandalism alone, that's money that could be going toward making the facilities nicer. And so it's, you know, taking from this pot and then putting it into another pot. We spend about $140,000 in janitorial on the bathrooms each year. And then that is a contracted service, and that's something that we're looking at possibly insourcing. So that won't happen until next year's budget process, but we are looking at that. Because we think that we might be able to have that role be a little bit more expanded than just janitorial. Could end up being a little bit more maintenance related and help us provide a better level of service. So we have also crime issues. It's not just vandalism, but it's also crime and nefarious activity. We have certain parks that tend to receive most of the service calls or have most of the issues. It's the old Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. 20% are going to cause 80% of the problems, and that's absolutely the case. And so part of what we're looking at is how do we take these problem parks and change how we are doing business here? So there's been some recent success with Pearlman Park, for example. We removed the bathroom at Pearlman Park. And prior to that, Pearlman was easily the highest crime and highest issue park in the system. And the decision was made to remove that facility and decouple the activity from that restroom and make some changes to the landscaping and just try to change the environment there. And it's really a non-issue at this point, just from terms of the types of calls that we get now versus what we saw. And that's, I talked to Casey Stone about this, and that's his perspective, and he gave me a nice write-up about that, which I'd be happy to share in more detail at some point. But there's also another couple of examples, including recently Oakley. We decided to do a pilot where we change Oakley's hours to reflect basically just when groups are using the facility, like baseball games, or if we have soccer, you know, something like that out in the field, then we'll open it, or if we have an event, or if we have Safe and Strong, then we'll go ahead and open up the facilities to be used, because we were under constant, we just had a constant crime problem and a constant vandalism problem at that park, and we were getting neighbor complaints. And so by closing that recently, we think we've helped break up some of that activity, because they become hubs of crime, unfortunately. And so changing the hours is something that we've been able to do. We're going to be painting that facility soon as well. Manami is another one. We had to close Manami. The bathroom couldn't take it anymore. But since we've noticed better environment, frankly. Another thing that we've done is, when we've had to close, we'll put porta potties in place, like Preschool, it's a huge, heavily used park. And so we really don't have a choice. I mean, we need bathrooms at that park. There's a lot of people. And so we'll put, the porta potties there, and we just adjusted our cleaning schedule again to now it's 4 days, and we include Friday and Sunday morning. So Friday night and Sunday morning to try and cover as good as we can those facilities, and then add more bathrooms. But it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And so I think where this tends to go is, at least in my mind, is we have neighborhood parks, and a lot of these parks are likely used by people who can walk to the park, and they can walk home if they need to use the facility. There's other parks that are more regional in nature and draw, maybe have more amenities. They draw a wider crowd, and those people aren't necessarily able to go back home and use a restroom because they've driven there to go to the park, or walked a great distance, or it's just a different type of environment. And so a lot of the parks that we're having issues in are neighborhood parks. And so one of the concepts is, making the hours adjustment, or altogether removing repeat offenders, and seeing if that can help make a change, make a difference. So that's where we're at. For us, I know that the Rangers, they spend a lot of time dealing with these types of issues, and my staff spends a lot of time dealing with these issues. I have a crew leader, Anthony, estimates that he spends about 25 to 33% of his time dealing with bathroom issues. And we need to be stewards of that time, and it seems like if we can eliminate a few problems, that ends up freeing up the ranger time and freeing up our staff person's time to do productive things instead of reactionary things, we're probably going to get a better result overall. So it's just, we need to revisit the policy of whether or not this makes sense moving forward. So, questions, thoughts?
Do we have any vandalism on the portables?
Not like you would see in the bathrooms. I mean, we do, but it's, scratching, it's writing, it's, you can't break the toilet.
Yeah.
We've, people have burnt them down before, you get that. But we haven't seen the level of, we can deal with the level of vandalism that's in the porta potties. In the other restrooms, when you're talking, a sink, a toilet, and shirts shoved down the pipe, and a broken door, you're talking a few $1,000 every time we do that. So, and it's closed for weeks.
And they're locked at nighttime, right?
So we have magnetic locks, and this is part of the problem is, so parks, we have this magnetic automatic locking system. So come 8 o'clock, boom, they're locked. What happens is people tend to tamper with them. And so they'll try and, glue the push to release. They'll take the magnets off and steal them. They'll pull the wires out of the walls. They'll do anything they can to keep those things from locking. So we end up with a nightly lockup list. And so the Rangers go around and will actually, lock up by hand certain bathrooms because we keep having problems with the mechanisms. And so once again, that's staff time that's going to, frankly, I think the wrong thing. And so,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for a portable restroom, a good quality restroom, we're paying about $1,000.
it's about $16 to pump. And yeah, the restroom itself is the other item.
And did you say it was like 2,000 to replace the toilet?
It's about $700 plus labor, including labor.
Plus labor.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lloyd.
I don't know if you're supposed to turn this on.
Turn on.
We're out there using porta potties all the time, and the kids.
Which ones?
Banana.
Okay.
Now, put some Benami on the other side.
There's some in Benami, yeah.
Yeah, and so the restrooms are closed at the building now.
Yep.
So the girls can run across all the way to, porta potties on the other across the end over there on the baths, right?
Yeah.
So they'll run across the field and go to the restroom. We send them in twos, they don't travel together. They go out there. They don't have a problem with those. Rodberg and Miramonte, you had the big one there.
Yep.
Okay, it's right in the middle of the park.
Not necessarily a problem area either.
Not a
Yeah.
problem area there. The kids use it, then the parents will walk actually to the building in Miramonte and use the clean restrooms there. But most of the kids, they use the porta potty there at Miramonte. And it does get, sometimes, like you said, it does get busy and it gets filled up, whatever, and then the city has to come. But people are used to porta potties, now, especially if you're out there in the field. Some parks, if they're in a good neighborhood, they don't want a porta potty out there, and it's, like you said, walking distance, they don't want that porta potty there. But it's okay to have them like that on Edwards, all the other big ones,
Right.
Porta potties, but the residents, they're like, oh, wow, you're gonna put a porta potty right there at Rice School or whatever, they're gonna get a little upset with porta potties, because that's where the homeless do hang out there. We see them living in there, we go to practice, they're in there, so. But the porta potties are still the safest things that we've seen. The buildings are kind of scary and sketchy, because you don't know who's inside the building, so you're sending the girls or the boys, the young kids to those ones. And
Like the
really
Benami
nice
restrooms.
Yeah, they're really nice restrooms, and so, but you have to be careful with them too,
Again, that's why we're kind of bringing it up. So we had council direction to build restrooms. It wasn't a choice that we had as a staff. Our recommendation was that they avoid building restrooms, that we either expand our portable units or we make a policy decision that restrooms in neighborhood parks, and those are the smaller parks, the Russells, the Joe White.
I have a list of high frequency
Rights,
problems from the Rangers.
Yeah, but those are the ones that you're close enough to your house if you're a customer of the park, theoretically. But on the bigger facilities, yes, we already have restrooms, so, we would just make sure they were kept up. But that wasn't the direction the council wanted to go. So we were given an allocation of a couple $100,000 a year over a few years, and the direction was put restrooms in the parks. So that was done, and now it's coming back to the point where we're probably exceeding the value of those units by just the cost of maintenance and time. I think time spent is probably our biggest issue.
It is.
We don't have time to send somebody out to lock restrooms. We don't have time to, we keep our contractor busy every day. There's something that he could respond to. So it's critical that this group, and again, when we move on to the next item that we have on the agenda, we can talk about getting input from the public and telling us what they want. And I think, like Commissioner Lee talked about in the sports complex, they don't know why the restroom is closed. All they know is that when they go to the park, there is a $100,000 restroom there and it's locked up. So they get angry. Some people purposely vandalize, but I think other people get mad because, hey, I want to use the bathroom and I can't. And I think those are some of the results of what we have is, we just have those issues coming up. So it would be one of my topics to discuss with the public.
I think Brett did it too, when he says that with the parks, you rent them and, West Side, he said you open them up, they only open them up when they're playing games, And so if we have a rented park, say like Robert Ventura, and there's the restrooms there, that's probably not a high vandalism area, is it?
At Ventura, no. It's kind of in the middle. We still get vandalism, but it's not like
And then, so, you rent that area, then you want to have a restroom for people to do that. And so most of them will have a barbecue pit, and with the city rents it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those sections, but that's actually.
I'm sympathetic to all the challenges. However, I would like to recommend looking into new ways of doing business. As an example, when we hired the skilled trades mechanics, the salaries of those individuals versus the amount of work they did to change out everything themselves as opposed to contracting out and paying the high costs of outsiders was well worth it. And in my senior years, in my travels, I so much appreciate when a city has good bathrooms and available bathrooms. There's nothing more frustrating, as we all know. When you're searching for a bathroom, you're desperate and they're all locked.
That's all come to light with COVID.
Yeah, exactly. So I would appreciate it if you can look into that and report back.
So we're gonna bring this back. Again, like I said, we want to have a policy discussion. We want to make a recommendation to the council. We want to decide what the heck we're going to do. You know, the other thing is that it eats away at a very finite budget that we have. If we are going to be dealing with $50, $100, $150,000 in vandalism every year, we need that money in the budget. And there's nowhere else to get it from. I mean, we're pulling it from buying irrigation parts. We're pulling it from planting grass. We're pulling it from fertilizer. Those are the things that suffer when we have to spend the money on a $700 toilet. It's just crazy. And we do have some other alternatives. I think, as I said, in our next discussion, we'll have Brett bring back some ideas, like what does it look like contracting versus hiring staff, going to, prison quality toilets instead of the typical comfortable, nice-looking white porcelain, There are those, there's equipment out there, it's just, it costs a lot of money in comparison.
And I think, a really big piece of discussion, is where do we need these? Where do we really need, is it rental, where we have a rental, where we have a sports, field, that type of thing. And then we need to look at a threshold of, okay, if we've had so much vandalism, then we're going to close for X period of time, like 90 days, or to try and break that cycle and get maybe these bad people to move on and change their behaviors. So we'll continue that. Start thinking about it, though. I'd love to hear your idea, because it's a big challenge.
I carry my porta potty in my truck. When we have a project, I told it with me, so I keep it on Mondays.
Hey, that could be a thought, you never know.
Bring your own.
BYO.
We already know there's no restroom there, so we take our own restroom.
How much do you believe this new problem is caused by the rise in homelessness?
It's 98% of the issue.
So we need to
Yeah, that's another.
work as a team and help solve that
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, it's a microcosm, for sure.
Thank you.
Number 7, Ryan, you want to do your budget update? And COVID report.
COVID report's good. Good afternoon. So we have completed our 2020-21 budget. We finished at 93% under budget, so almost 7% under budget, which is good. A lot of that is due to COVID, obviously, and things of that nature. Going forward, we have our new budget that was just opened on Monday, so I'm looking through those numbers, and I'll be working with staff to make sure there's no anomalies and everything's in order, make sure nothing was missed. We'll also be working on our carryovers in August, so any monies that we had in capital projects from this past fiscal year, we are allowed to move those over to the 21-22. So I'll be working with staff in the next month or so on making sure that's accomplished. We did have a couple of SBRs and CMAPs, so supplemental budget requests that were approved by the finance team, and then also some of the capital projects. One of the bigger ones was we had requested about $466,000 last fiscal year to be added to our utilities line items in all our various accounts, so water, gas, electric. They didn't approve it for this past fiscal year, but this next fiscal year going forward, they approved it at 50%. So we'll receive about $233,000 towards utilities, which will definitely be helpful. One of the other ones that was important as well is in the Park Services Officer Coordinator. We currently have one position approved. They approved a second one, so that will give us another 32-hour person that can serve as somewhat of a supervisor when Casey is not around. So that one was approved. And then a couple other big ones that are important for our CMAPs. We were approved to purchase another Ranger vehicle to replace one of our old ones. We were approved $220,000 for tree trimming in all our city parks, so that'll be helpful in addition to the gas tax money we receive. So we'll have about $500,000 for tree trimming this next fiscal year. And we also were approved purchase of a dump truck that's going to take the place of the chipper truck that will help us in our runs to the landfill, so we'll need fewer runs to the landfill. So those are some of the highlights of what City Council and City Manager's Office and Finance approved for us. So it was nice that we did get some additional funding and an additional body in the Park Services area. The COVID report, as of right now, we have nobody on the list, which is good, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that. We have the new policy, which is out to all our city employees, and then we have our COVID plan that's in place, and I believe Sheila was referring to that when she came in this afternoon, the training that commissioners have to attend as well. So we're moving forward with our programs based on our new plan. So are there any questions on budget, COVID-related items?
I know the new variants and concerns are relatively for the younger population. I'm wondering if there's anything our department could be doing to encourage, empower more people to get vaccinated of that generation.
Yeah, that's, I'd have to follow up with Risk on that, because Risk is the one who spearheads a lot of this, and then the direction goes out to all city employees, so it's not up to each department to make those decisions, but I can follow up with Risk and see if they have any plans going forward for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In our plan, it does call for youth to continue to be masked at programs. So the youth center or wherever they're participating, they'll have to wear a mask.
Which is kind of unrealistic, especially if they're playing sports,
Yeah.
running around.
I think sports is an exemption, but if you're playing video games or if you're hanging out in the computer lab, those kinds of things, I think you're required to be masked, at least according to our policy, and I think that comes from the CDC guidelines. The other thing is we're working on a staff side is how we will implement the non-vaccinated person being required to wear a mask. We're expecting that there'll be some final traffic on that as far as how do we manage that as a supervisor. And it appears that it will be falling on to the supervisors to be the enforcers of that rule. We're waiting to see the result. Hopefully this week we'll know how that goes. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Ray.
Thank you.
7B is the noteworthies. You all have them. Again, June, kicking off summer stuff, a lot of things happening. Any questions on noteworthies?
No question?
What's the art walk at the county building?
So the County Arts Commission and the county general services people created a partnership where right in front of the youth probation program, the juvenile probation building, which is the one on that faces on to college, they created a path off the sidewalk on the county property that will have three-dimensional art pieces along it. And that'll be, again, along College. So, College or Miller?
Oh,
Miller. That's along the Miller area there. And so, was it districts that helped out on that?
Yeah.
Special district staff went in and helped remove some of the turf
Build the path.
within the county area there to build the path. That was kind of a partnership we did with them to, part of our art plan to be partners in things like that.
Cool.
So I was kind of concerned, though. I drove by that building today, and it looks terrible. The ground.
Is it irrigation?
Terrible
I don't know what
condition.
happened.
Is it irrigation issues?
I don't know.
Yeah,
county
everything is
building.
dead, you know, so the art walk kind of looks,
Yeah, I didn't know if they had a drought mandate or what. Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, so that's what that is.
Thank you.
7C, so we've been batting around special district financing, and you'll notice in the goals that Sheila handed out to you, the number one goal for us, and number 1, 2, and 3 are our priority goals. Number 1 is to get the districts into better financial shape. Scott's done a really good job over the last couple of budget years trying to get them into better shape, and they're in better shape, but they're still floundering, at least 3 of the 4. So we're trying to decide what way to go. So in order for us to have any increase in the fees that we charge the residents, the assessments that they get, it requires a vote. It's a 218 vote. So we have to go to send out a ballot to each of the residents and ask them to vote for an increase, whatever that happens to be within their particular area. So that's 4 separate elections that we have to have.
Wow.
So I have no idea, but I would figure each election probably run somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, somewhere around there, to coordinate them and mail out the ballots and bring them all back. And the council has to have, a special session or not a special session, but a session where they'll address the assessments. I believe they have to have 2 or 3 council meetings to address them. So it's a protracted process. We hired the Wilden Group to help us come up with the actual cost within the districts. We're hoping to get that study going, or is it going soon?
It's going.
And then they'll bring us back a number, and they'll tell us, well, in the southeast, you should be charging X to each of the residences for their fee. And then that's how we would send out the ballot. The other alternative that we've been kind of batting around, and I spoke to another consulting group today, is to, instead of going to 4 separate elections, is to go to 1 citywide election to create a park district which would dedicate its funds to simply do fund park and park facilities. We don't know what that would cost, but basically we know that the Parks Division budget is about $5 million roughly. So that's kind of a starting point, and we know that that budget is not enough money to fund what we do. I'm not 100% sure how much the districts spend in parks, but there's an allotment within the districts that they spend that could be enrolled into that number. And, if I was to throw out a number, I would say we're probably looking at about an $8 to $10 million budget a year for parks and facilities, and that would include the community centers, the pools, to kind of envelop them in one assessment that we would send out. Lompoc was successful 5 or 6 years ago doing one for their parks and their aquatic center. Obviously, it's not as big a system, so the cost wasn't that much. $10 million split across the city of Santa Maria residences. You're talking some significant dollars, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to $350 a parcel. So it would take some work. And so we're trying to get some numbers generated, and we'll come back and make a decision. Does it make sense to go to 1 election for this special purpose? And hopefully the electorate would support us, and we do a campaign and we do all those things that we need to do. Or do we have 4 separate elections in 4 separate areas and see what happens? The advantage is 1 election, the disadvantage is 1 election. So, but we'll be talking more about it. I just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on the fact that we're actually looking at alternatives for that. So, I brought up the department goals, and I just did a quick memo to you. One of the goals, I believe it's goal number let's see here. Goal number 8 is to take the commission on the road, and we talked about this a couple of commission meetings ago. So the memo that I provided to you talks about taking the commission on the road in November, February, March, and April. Doing exactly what Commissioner Lee's talking about bringing the community in, telling them what's going on, getting their input, having them there telling us what they want. Validating what we have in our leisure assessment that's now almost 4 years old, and do we need to change it? Do we need to look at an update to it? What's happening with it? And I think the best way to do it is to get out there and talk to people, and encouraging you all to talk to the people that you know and the groups that you know, and have them come and tell us in each of their quadrants of the city. That's how this is set up, to tell us what they think their needs are. It'll help us, if we decide to do an election, it may help us market that, give the information out to them. We can't politicize it, but we can certainly provide them the information. Anyway, so it is a little bit later so that we can try and capture more people, availability in the evenings. So we're proposing 6 p.m. times for these meetings. Take a look at it and let us know your thoughts. We won't take action until next month's meeting as to officially setting these as our dates, but that would be staff recommendation to follow up with these. And the other goals, as you can see, are, I think, pretty achievable. I think there are things that we think we can work on. Developing the landscaping funding, engaging community members in specific park development, just like Commissioner Milena was talking about on sports fields and sports groups getting involved. Submit grant applications for whatever project we're working on. I mean, we still have the cultural center project to raise money for. You know, that's another $3 to $4 million project. The rate things are going now, who knows what it'll end up really costing us. Using, again, the leisure assessment as our main tool for setting our action items for the year. One of the things that came up as was this feeling that there were parts of the city that didn't have enough park space based on their population. So some of the ideas that we're looking at is vacant parcels that the city may own that maybe we could look at doing something that's more productive. The chapel lot is an example of that, of taking it from being pretty much an misused parking area and making it a venue for events. But there are a couple of other smaller parcels that the city owns that, you know, were used for well sites and different things like that, that maybe would serve now as good little parklet areas. Okay. So we're taking a look at that. Brett and the tree committee, or now the environmental committee, have been working hard on coming up with a new tree ordinance. So that's on our list, and we want to get that moving as quickly as possible to kind of end run any other proposed ordinances that are out there that could be a little bit more negative to impact to our program. So we're trying to do our urban forest, so we want to make sure that we get the first shot at the council with these items. Funding mechanism for public art. You know, I think Dennis has done an outstanding job getting art done. I don't know if you've been over to the library and seen the new art that's on the ground entrances there on the drains that go into the storm drain system. They're pretty cool looking. I actually thought somebody had graffitied up the ground as I was walking up. I said, what the heck is that? You know? So, but it's Dennis. So we're working forward on that. We partnered with the Downtown Fridays, and I don't know how many of you have been out to Downtown Friday. This last Friday was, I would say, a good 2,500, 3,000 people through the event. Our support division is providing them the stage to use, our city stage, and that's really kind of added an extra element to the event, kind of dressed it up a little bit. Again, our outreach efforts, trying to reach out to the disenfranchised, the hard-to-reach youth and seniors. You know, I think those are groups that we, especially during the pandemic, I think we learned a lot about the shut-in senior, and is there a way to do more with them, for them? Is there a way to look at the senior center and its programming, and maybe there's ways to expand it and maybe look at new models? We're looking at changing up our sports programs, our traditional sports programs, and I use traditional in the sense of an anchor, that this is the way we've always done it. And so the challenge to staff now is maybe it's time to start looking outside of that box that we've been in for the last 50 years, and maybe it's time to create some new programming and partner with some new groups and get some things going. City Ranger policies, getting those going. Casey, I don't know how many of you remember, but Casey presented his thick policy guideline manual that he spent months developing, and did such a good job on it that he and I are going to Nashville to the National Parks Conference in September to do a program on it, and we were invited to go and share that policy manual in our program. So we're real excited about that. But kudos to Casey for getting that done. And then the promoting environmental sustainability, social engagement and community pride. The social engagement and community pride is, again, how getting the commission out in the community, getting you known, getting you to be that the community knows who you are, and they can get out and get in contact with you and let you know things, and concerns, or even good things. Once in a while, like you got your little note in there that we got, that, we do good things. So, yeah. That's the director's report, and I'll turn it over to Brett for the division reports.
Right, so first recreation. I just wanted to give everybody an update, make sure everyone was up to speed on the pool. So we've got adult lap swim, seniors and up, that's open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Recreation swim, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then Saturday, Sunday, 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. So we're staying busy with that. We're also doing swim lessons Monday through Friday, 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then swim club has their allotted times as well. Aquatics classes, we have paddleboard yoga Monday from 10 to 11 a.m. Shallow water walking, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then deep water walking Monday, Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we are actively programming the pool. And then if anybody has a question about rates too, I have the current rates. So it's been a while since we talked about the pool, so I wanted to discuss that since we're moving more into normal operation for that. And we did have the 4th of July event as well, which I understand was very well attended and quite successful. So
And it was hot, so it was good.
Yeah. So the list of upcoming events, I believe everybody has a copy of that. And so we'll be, on the park side supporting, making sure that all the electrical is in place and everything's ready to go for the concerts in the park. I think that's the most notable thing on here that is coming back. And we've got a change in venue also for the National Night Out that's going to be coming up in August. And so that's going to be at Aquatics Park out in the basin out there. So that'll be the first big go for that facility. It should be a really great spot for it. So we're excited about that. Let's see. Any questions about, we're also going to be doing concerts in the parks. So in the past, it's only been Rotary Basin. And so we set up Aquatics to be able to handle that type of event. So that's something that we're going to be looking at as well. So looks like Dennis got it programmed for Sunday, 29th of August. So, any questions?
Just comment. Oftentimes, one is always the last to toot your own horn, so to speak. So I'm looking at all of these public events coming up, like concerts in the park, Downtown Fridays, etc. Do you currently promote yourselves at those events? Do you have a tent? Do you have handouts or anything to promote your department and services? I'm just Curious.
I do not know. I would need to talk, I mean, I assume that we would. Typically, we're all over these events,
Yeah.
and typically we have a booth, from what I've seen. Some of these events I have not yet seen, so, but I think that's a good point to bring up with Dennis. I'm sure Dennis
Especially
will.
the upcoming concerns like we've talked about today,
Yeah,
you know.
I don't know if,
Yeah, but I can follow up briefly if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. This is actually Paul's report, and I'm sure Alex can as well, but typically at downtown Friday nights, we would have a tent canopy there with staff that would hand out flyers and information like that. Concerts, that are generally the same thing. They're handing out information on upcoming events, whether it's the next concert or, you know, a free swim day, things of that nature. So typically, pre-COVID we did, so I imagine post-COVID we would be doing the same thing as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. On to operations. So we've got a number of projects in works. If you go out to Oakley right now, we are working on a renovation of the sports fields. And then we're going to be doing some additional work, painting the building, painting the bathroom and whatnot, and just an overall refresh. We're also going to repaint the basketball court. And so just working on a overall complete renovation of the park, just a light. It's a heavy renovation, but it's not construction. It's all maintenance related. So changing some vegetation. We're going to need to end up changing out some of the tree species that are there. There's some problematic trees that are there that were planted, and we're going to need to change those to avoid future issues. But here in a couple of weeks, Oakley will be looking a lot better. So that's been our big project. We had the Buena Vista beautification project with the Serve Santa Maria group. And so our group, our parks employees went in and preemptively did a lot of work before the volunteer weekend. And then Serve Santa Maria came in and did a really nice beautification to the park, planted, you know, new plants in areas that were just, you know, sort of impacted by, you know, years of use, and then spread wood chips, and it's really looking sharp. There's a couple of little areas that we need to touch up, but overall that was a really great project. Chapel Plaza, moving into some capital projects. We're still awaiting numbers for that. We understand that our numbers are going to be much higher than what we had anticipated when we applied for the grant. And so we're going to need to sharpen our pencil on that project and look at value engineering opportunities for that to try and save some cash. We have the easement is going to be with our neighbor. It's a parking and access easement, is going to be going to council next week. So all goes well with that, then we'll be able to fully move forward with that project. We have also our permit, it's already been approved. So Eric Ridio is back from vacation and able to focus on that project once again. So that's kind of the critical person there for us to move forward. Veterans Memorial, no status update, just moving forward with the project, going through plans. Smith Enos House, we completed the lead-based paint remediation. And so what you see on the building now is a primer. And we're working through, we're gonna get our windows ordered. Windows are gonna go in, roof's gonna go in, and the exterior carpentry. So anything that needs to be touched up on the outside is gonna be worked on. And overall, we'll see a much sharper looking building over the next 2 months, 2 to 3 months, and before the rainy season. And then simultaneously working through and getting our final plans approved for the interior. So exterior will be done, and then we'll be working on the inside once again. So excited for that. And then just for the sake of time, we are working on the Preschool Park Pond as well. And we have a quote to do some concrete repairs to the pond. And then I'm also working on some quotes for some liners as well, so we have a comparison of what our options are. And then I put in your packet, before I move on, any questions on capital projects, what we have going on, or projects in general? I put in your packet something, I don't know that we've done this before, but it's special districts renovations. And Scott, Anthony are here from special districts, and I wanted to, it's probably not an area that you all have been involved that much in the past, but it's an important part of what we do, an important part of what I do in department, and easily consumes half my time with special districts, and it's a lot of what you see around the town that isn't parks, but we do have some district parks, but it's a lot of what beautifying our town is related to this special districts group. And so this is a list of renovations and installations that we're going to be doing this coming year, and some that we've included for last year. And so you can see each district, all the different areas that we're going to be working in, and all the different areas that are going to get touched by our crew, and see some significant improvement. And so I just wanted you to have an understanding of what that looks like, and the scale of work that these guys are doing. It's pretty impressive. And so if you see any in your area and you'd like to question us about it, that would be a good time.
I like the improvements you've done to the Miller Basin since I live over there.
Glad to hear that. Yeah,
The new trees and.
we're going to be continuing to do that, continuing improvements next week. So we'll be doing turf improvements. All they've done is some irrigation improvements. So we'll be following up with doing dethatching and renovating the turf itself, and making sure that that's going to be a sharper look as well. So we're about halfway there. Safe to say. But thank you. Any other questions or
What's
comments?
turf abandonment?
Turf abandonment, so we would go from seeing a strip of turf to being replanted into a different species, so that we're reducing our water usage.
Oh, okay.
So we look at areas where we don't have people actively using turf. So if it's ornamental turf or something like that, that's something where we see an opportunity and go, okay, we can reduce our maintenance and we can reduce our water usage if we change it to a different species and a different type of plant material. And so that's what that is.
While we're on that topic of the drought, you mentioned rainy season, we may not have one for a long.
Yeah, I heard La Nina is coming again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
the relative term.
right.
Yes.
So my question is, I'm sure you're constantly evaluating, reevaluating, like you said, how to best maximize our usage of water, et cetera, and use less water, et cetera. I'm just thinking of how can we also work with the public in that respect. I know I hear a lot of neighbors and friends talking about how can we create a more drought-tolerant landscaping for our yards. Just speaking on top of my head, you know.
I think that's something worth considering with the environmental committee as a goal. You know, these are things we've identified, education and outreach as part of that. And I should mention, we're also going to be submitting a grant tomorrow for our tree urban forestry management plan. And so that's going to go a long ways. And a big piece of that is going to be education and outreach. And so that's really the first step for us is, you know, tree species and whatnot. But you bring up a good point as far as landscaping. And I see that in other, typically it tends to be more of a utilities driven thing because they're able to get monies for that. But maybe we could work with utilities to be the educational arm of that, you know, grant, if you will, because they're the ones that are tasked with reducing water usage overall in the city. We can certainly play a good role with the expertise that we have in the education and outreach portion. So, but probably should follow up with that in the environmental committee.
In regards to the environmental committee, the other concern is solar. Again, I see so many of these solar stations popping up. I haven't seen any really with the city yet. And I'm just wondering if you guys can raise that and see if there's a possibility.
Yeah. Dennis texted me on his vacation with some ideas. So I'm glad to see that he's thinking of that.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
Oh, Tesla's starting their charging station install at the mall today. So, FYI, Town Center East.
Those are everywhere all of a sudden.
Yep.
Have a lot of money.
I haven't been to the mall in so long.
Well, there's
Is
one at
that by-
Target, they took down a bunch of trees for them, and it
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah.
I don't know if that one's a Tesla.
No, it's not a Tesla.
Oh, it's not?
Company.
Yeah.
But you are seeing more electric stations. The closest Tesla is at the
Slow.
mall, Pismo outlets.
Oh, okay.
And it's a-
Pismo, yeah, there's a few there.
Yeah, and then I guess Buellton might be considered, Buellton Marriott's closer, and they have one.
Okay, moving on, number 8, Commissioners' Report. Anyone have any reports to give?
I do not.
I do.
Commissioner Carey?
I'll skip May. June, oh, Surf Santa Maria. It was really fun because we were in Buena Vista Park, like Brett mentioned, and there was so much mulch and they kept bringing it in piles of it. So if you guys haven't driven by there or walked by there, it's really nice with all the new plantings and mulch. What else? July 7th. The Alliance for Trees, which our commission, or I guess the Recreation and Parks Commission is part of our city. They're doing an environmental justice training, and we've done 2 of them so far. We have another one next month. And it's actually teaching us how to reach out to different groups in our community, so we'll be able to help with, like, on all different levels of when we're doing our education. Our children's trees, I'll talk to you about that later. Alliance for Community Trees, Environmental Justice. I think I thought there was more. That's it, that's good, it's late. Wait, I have cards for Trees of Santa Maria. I'm gonna pass them out. It's a Facebook page.
Yay.
Who did
And-
that?
Who put
made
that
that page?
together?
Me?
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that because we name dropped you on the grant application. So,
Oh, you did?
yes.
Did you need like a headshot or something? But I'll pass these out, and just check our Facebook, or my Facebook page. And if you have some great trees, please let me know, because I'll be glad to go check them out and photograph them. It's like really fun. And then we have such gorgeous trees in our town. It's just remarkable. Anyway, that's it. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Are we? I guess we can adjourn if there's nothing else. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Hits a hammer.